Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, and today is going to be more of a theme deck, where the theme of the deck is going to be centered around the 4 Dark Masters. So for those who don't know who the Dark Masters are, in the original Digimon Adventures TV show, they were one of the main antagonist groups that the heroes had to overcome. So as such, there were 4 of them, and I made a deck to try to focus on all 4, and obviously with the leader being the hardest card to use out of them, I had to base a lot of the deck around him. So the deck itself is kind of playing like a Mega Zoo kind of style deck, where you're going to be playing a lot of your high-end cards for their play cost, and as such, we want to try to figure out how to get the most value out of our cards. So I'm using the purple base because Piedmon is going to be the star of the show, and I'll get to that when I get to him. So first, starting off with the Digitamas, I'm running 4 copies of Pagumon. So Pagumon is in here just because he has the nice inheritable ability of when attacking, we get to trash the top card of our deck. So being a purple-focused deck for the most part, we do have a little bit of trash-based synergy, and Pagumon definitely helps us get our trash to a good enough state where we definitely have a lot of different options to pick from when we're using our synergy cards. And then the last Digitama of the deck is going to be 1 copy of Yaamon. Yaamon is in here just because of the DP boost if we have 5 or more cards in our trash. So this isn't exactly amazing for the deck, but it's not exactly bad for the deck either. And that medium area is kind of just why Yaamon is at 1. Next on to the rookies. So I'm playing 4 copies of DemiDevimon just because he is the value vanilla card of the deck. Very efficient to play, very efficient to digivolve into, with some decent DP. Next, I'm playing 4 copies of Gabumon. So Gabumon is in here because he has the nice inheritable effect where on deletion you get to draw 2 and discard 1. So the drawing 2 is helping us dig through our deck a little bit more, and then the discarding 1 is making it so that we could set up our trash to use whatever synergy based cards we want along with it. So Gabumon is really good for helping us set up. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Tapirmon. So Tapirmon is in here because he has the innate on deletion ability of being able to draw us 1 card. So this is really good because this allows us to just have a Tapirmon on the field. We don't really feel like we need to digivolve past him, considering, again, the whole objective is trying to play our really expensive high-level Digimon. So having some low-level Digimon just to sit on is a very good thing. And then obviously, because we're not going to be digivolving a whole lot, we're still going to be digivolving, just not as much as a normal deck does. We still need to have ways to make up that lacking card draw, so Tapirmon is really good for that also. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Tsukaimon. So Tsukaimon is pretty good because he gives the inheritable ability of on deletion, we get to gain +1 memory. And again, wanting to play a lot of our high level cards means that we're going to be spending a lot of memory. So anywhere we could save on some memory is definitely a very good thing to do. Next, on to the champions. I'm running 4 copies of Wizardmon. So Wizardmon is pretty good because he has the nice on deletion ability of drawing us a card also. There's a very high chance we're not even going to be digivolving past our champions, so having him just sit on the field to also allow us to draw some cards is also a very, very good thing to do. On top of which, he is a great Digimon to digivolve off of either Gabumon or Tsukaimon because they both give nice on-deletion effects of doing something else, so he is just a very good high synergy card for the deck. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Vilemon. So Vilemon is really, really good because he is the blocker of the deck. That's really the only real reason why we're running him, but you still always need to have your blockers just in case the situation arises. And again, we're not really going to be digivolving past our champion level, so just sitting on a blocker is going to be a very good thing to do sometimes. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Devimon. So Devimon is in here because he has the really powerful retaliation ability, where when this Digimon is deleted after losing a battle against the opponent's Digimon, then we get to delete the Digimon it was doing battle with. So whether it's being attacked into or is doing the attacking into a Digimon, it's going to get deleted through the retaliation effect, and that's just really, really powerful. Next, onto the ultimates, I'm running 3 copies of Zudomon. So Zudomon is in here mainly because he has the on-play ability of drawing us 2 cards, which that's pretty good considering, again, we're not necessarily going to be digivolving as much as the normal deck, so we are going to be lacking a little bit on the card draw department, and Zudomon is great because we don't need to digivolve up into him to get his draw 2 effect. And then on top of which, this could end up being relevant, but he does have the inheritable effect of when attacking. If one of our opponent's Digimon has no Digivolution cards in play, then we get to gain +1 memory. So anywhere we could save memory is definitely going to be a very good thing, and we actually can use this inheritable effect because we are playing a blue Mega that we could potentially Digivolve into. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Kimeramon. So Chimeramon's pretty good because he has the on-play ability where we get to delete one of our Digimon to delete one of the opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon. So as you probably have noticed, a lot of our lower end Digimon have a lot of on-deletion effects. So he is not only a great way to get those on-deletion effects, but he also is going to be able to remove a body off of the opponent's board, which is very, very good. Next, onto the Megas, I'm running 2 copies of Machinedramon. So Machinedramon is a pretty interesting card because he innately has the blocker ability, so that means we have more blockers in our deck to possibly use to help stave off some of the aggression on the opponent's side. And then on top of which, he has a really powerful on-play ability where we get to Digivolve 2 of the opponent's Digimon by 2. So this means that we get to trash up to 2 cards off the top of the opponent's Digimon until they either have no Digivolution cards or become level 3. So reducing the size of the opponent's Digimon is just a very, very powerful thing to do, considering we have a whole bunch of blockers with him and Vilemon, and we could potentially put the Digimon in target of Chimeramon's ability. So Machinedramon is just a very decent card that has a good ability. Next, I'm running 2 copies of MetalSeadramon. So MetalSeadramon, just as a thing to know, is a blue Mega that we could Digivolve off of Zudomon with to get Zudomon's inheritable effect. And it also makes it playing MetalSeadramon a little bit more cheaper, even though we don't get his on-play ability. But sometimes against certain matchups, we might not need his on-play ability. And what his on-play ability is we get to return up to 2 of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon back to their hand. That's really, really good considering it's a big anti-tempo swing for the opponent. So now they're going to have to spend that amount of time or resources just replaying those cards. But considering we're going to be giving them a whole bunch of memory, it's not the most relevant thing all of the time. So that's why Zudomon is also a really good card for the deck, because we could just Digivolve up into MetalSeadramon without really the need to want to use his on-play ability. But it's just a nice flexible thing to have nonetheless. And then he has another ability. During our turn, this Digimon can't be blocked by your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards in it. So that means if they just have a blocker sitting raw on the field, MetalSeadramon is unblockable. So that's just an alright ability to have, considering they might want to just raw play a blocker because they want to try to block one of our more powerful Digimon and buy themselves some time. Next up, I'm running 2 copies of Puppetmon. So Puppetmon is pretty good because, again, he has another powerful on-play ability where we get to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon, and then during the opponent's turn, they can't unsuspend any of their Digimon. So that's really, really powerful considering if any of the Digimon are rested outside of the one that we are suspending, then they won't be able to unsuspend either. So that means we could potentially use Puppetmon to lock the opponent's field down, and that's just a really powerful thing because it allows us to then try to take control of the board or try to push for extra damage. And then he has a really nice when attacking ability of giving us 1 memory, which again, since we're going to be playing a lot of our cards for very high costs, anywhere we could save on memory is definitely a very good thing to do. And then the last mega of the deck is going to be the star of the show, leader of the Dark Masters, Piedmon. So Piedmon is really powerful and is the whole reason why we're playing this purple base, just so we could try to use his on-play effect more effectively. So his on-play effect is we may play up to 2 level 4 or lower purple Digimon from our trash without paying their memory costs, and then they don't get their on-play effects. But none of our low-level Digimon have on-play effects, so that doesn't really matter. But the whole point that we're playing Piedmon is to revive some of our lower-level Digimon, which our lower-level Digimon are very important for the deck, as well as our high-level Digimon. He is just good enough to build a board very quickly, on top of which he even has a nice retaliation ability, where he could also then trade into some of the opponent's megas, or if the opponent's cards are trading into Piedmon, then they'll still get destroyed. So overall, he is just a really powerful card, and the reason why we're playing the deck the way that we are. Next, on to the option cards. I'm running 4 copies of Night Raid. So Night Raid is just a generically decent card that if you're running the purple low end, there's no real reason not to run this card because it's a very efficient card. Its main ability is we get to play 1 level 3 purple Digimon from our trash without paying its memory cost, and then we don't get the on-play effects. But we really just care about trying to keep our board alive and as active as we possibly can, because that's just more pressure on the opponent, and it even has the nice added benefit of activating its main effect from our security. That's really good because then it could just basically create a body out of nowhere, or depending on what we're reviving, we get a slight tiny discount off of playing it from our trash with Night Raid. So overall, a really fantastic card. And then the last option I'm going to be running is 2 copies of Trump Sword. So Trump Sword is just the hard removal card of the deck, where its main ability is we get to delete 1 of the opponent's unsuspended Digimon. So whether they're suspended or not, we have ways of removing their Digimon. And then its security ability is activating its main effect. So whether we're casting it from our hand or playing it from our security, it's still going to be a very powerful card to have nonetheless. And then the last card I'm going to be running in the deck is 2 copies of the Purple Mat. So this is our memory fixer for the deck. So at the start of our turn, if our memory is 2 or less, then it becomes 3. So again, anywhere where we could save on memory is something we want to be doing, because again, a lot of our cards are very expensive to just normally play. And then he has a great on-play effect where we get to return 1 purple Digimon or purple option card from our trash into our hand. So this allows us to basically recur almost anything we really want back into our hand outside of the other Dark Master Megas. So overall, Matt is a very fantastic card. And then he even has the nice security ability where we can play this card without paying its memory cost, and then that does trigger its on-play effect. So overall, Matt is just a very good card for the deck to have. Now, I do have some other cards that you could possibly think about running with the deck. So you could also think about running the blue Matt. So the blue Mat already has some synergy with the deck, considering we're already playing some blue Digimon already, especially since we're playing the blue Digimon for their on-play effects. So that really helps trigger his ability where we could suspend this card to trash the bottom Digivolution card of one of our opponent's Digimon. So this just makes it that much easier to start attacking the opponent's Digivolution sources, because we're not really doing much of anything different, on top of which he is just another memory fixer. You could also think about running Mimi. So Mimi is a card that still has some synergy with the deck, considering we are playing Puppetmon, and Puppetmon is a level 6 green Digimon. So while Puppetmon is on the field, we could use Mimi's effect to get cards out of our breeding area that much faster, on top of which she is another memory fixer. We could also think about playing Millenniumon in the deck. So we are running both purple and black level 6s. So whether it's Digivolving on top of Machinedramon or Digivolving on top of Piedmon, Millenniumon could still be used, and Millenniumon is still a very, very powerful Digimon to think about because of his two big abilities. His when Digivolved ability essentially is a single target removal on any of the opponent's Digimon, and it puts it back to the bottom of the deck. So that's still very, very powerful. And then he has an on deletion ability where if this card had any Digivolution cards, then he basically self-revives himself. So that's really good because it is keeping a body on board. And again, we have multiple different ways of Digivolving up into Millenniumon. We could also think about using DemiDevimon. So DemiDevimon is a card that is something I'd be a little bit less inclined to use in a style of deck like this. But if you want to swap out Kimeramon for something else and try to go for a more traditional Digivolve up strategy, at least for one Digivolution line, then DemiDevimon becomes a lot more better because his on deletion ability is gaining a memory, but it is in the inheritable sources, so you do have to Digivolve up into the ultimates, and that's usually something we're not really going to be doing a whole lot. But you could try to fix the deck to really accommodate and include him, because that ability is still a very decent ability to have. And then the last card to think about is Back for Revenge. So Back for Revenge is a pretty interesting card considering it is doing something very similar to Night Raid, except it's completely different than Night Raid. So its main effect is one of our Digimon gains the on deletion effect of being able to play itself without paying its memory, and then unfortunately we don't get any on play effects, but that's still fine because we get to keep the body around, and that's really what we're looking for with this card, is to keep the body around to apply more pressure on the opponent. So even though we don't get any security effects, the fact that this can target basically anything means that we could start reviving some of our Megas, and we could have some really interesting plays, and we could really use this card in a couple of different ways. So I think this is a very good option card that you could think about running. So for the most part, that's kind of the deck. It is basically a Megazoo style of deck that allows you to also play a low end where you're trying to Digivolve up into your champions, and then Piedmon being the main focal point of the deck just means that you could use a lot of those lower level Digimon in some new and interesting ways that really only purple can do. As always, I'll have the deck list down in the description below, and feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or comments about the deck. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I will see you in the next video.